After the crushing loss in Game 1 of the doubleheader, the Royals respond in a good way for Game 2 and come out with a 7-5 win. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into our second episode of the day on Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wanting to know what we do here on the channel when we bring you episodes, we go to you live Monday through Friday. Well, I should probably leave the live portion for our brand new postcast held by Chance Lebo, or hosted by Chance Lebo. He actually just had his first episode tonight, so after every single Royals game, he will come to you live. These podcasts are pre-recorded, of course. So we try to bring you those Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes. The postcasts are 15 minutes, but you can always come here for daily Royals content. We also give you 60-second YouTube shorts after each and every Royals game. Those will come from me. The postcast stuff will be coming from Chance moving forward. Now, before we dive into tonight's show, want to let you know that today's title sponsor is Wonderful Pistachios. And with Wonderful Pistachios, you can get snackin and get crackin with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. It really was a eerily similar game tonight to what we saw in Game 1 from the bullpen, I should say. Not how the game went down, but what the bullpen was able to do in Game 2 of this doubleheader was very similar to what they were able to do in Game 1. However, I would argue, not trying to have any recency bias here, I thought tonight was more impressive, considering how Game 1 went. And you can check out our reaction to Game 1 on our YouTube channel and all the podcasting platforms as well. What we dove into in that first episode of the day was the bullpen decision, the bullpen moves, the defensive positioning, pulling Noah Cameron too early. And what did we talk about? That, if you have a game like Game 2 where you push all the right buttons and you get a bunch of green flags and a bunch of check marks en route to a win, we don't talk about it as much. I mean, go scroll through Twitter tonight or Facebook or maybe Instagram or TikTok, whatever you use. You're not going to see any comments likely on the bullpen usage for tonight's game. But the bullpen usage for tonight's game, next to the offense, is the reason they were able to win. I mean, the offense gave this team 7 runs of support. And the rotation, hey, they're allowed to have a bad series. For how good they've been through the first 63 games, they are entitled to a bad series and not having great starts in all 3 of them. And the Royals only got 1 good start in this series, and they gave up 18 runs, yet they leave feeling like they should have swept the Cardinals. They take 2 of 3, and as we mentioned on that first episode today, anytime you look back in September at a road series win, it's a good series, even if you coughed up one of those games in the series. They have a season split with St. Louis, who is still 6 games over 500. You feel good leaving St. Louis and on that flight to Chicago, because now you got the offense clicking a little bit, and the bullpen really picked you up tonight. Angel Serpa going 3 scoreless innings completely picked up a bad start from Cole Ragans, making his first start since coming off the injured list. Steven Cruz looked like a beast out there. 2 scoreless innings. He strikes out more than 3, and he's pumping 98, 99 with regularity, getting tons of swing and miss stuff. And he was on the mound tonight with the mentality of, I have 99 and you can't hit it. It was the Kelvin Herrera type mentality where you feel you've got great stuff and great command, and they're just not going to touch it. And the Cardinals couldn't touch anything after Cole Ragans left the game. Serpa was very efficient. Cruz was efficient. and Carlos Estevez made up for blowing the save on the afternoon slate and went 1-2-3 in the ninth to close down that 7-5 victory. But there's a lot to like for what they did in game two. Not just that the offense once again responded well. It was that they gave up 5 runs in the first 3 innings, and then they held them scoreless the rest of the game. That was important, and that was huge because the bullpen got worked a little bit in game one. And that was a concern of a lot of people. Are they going to have enough arms to get through game two? They're going to need a great outing from Cole Ragans, and they didn't get one. But you push all the right buttons tonight. You have the defensive switch out there as well. John Rave made a catch in the 9th inning. He was out there for defense. It had a catch probability of 100%, like it was an easy play, and Jack Caglione also handled every ball he got in right field. But we don't talk about the defensive switch because it worked. And I'm so glad, not just because of the win, but the game went the way it did tonight. If the Royals would have lost, blown that 5-1 lead, man, you are feeling really pissed off about how that series went because you felt you should have won both of those games today, and you leave now 8.5 back of Detroit. You're a game and a half to 2 games out of a playoff spot. It's not the end of the world, but you feel that you left a lot on the table. And when the offense gave you 23 runs in the series, that has to be a series win. With how good your rotation has been, with how good your bullpen is, and the offense gave you that type of run support. And the only negative you could say offensively is that we didn't get to see Jack Caglione in full effect. He only had 1 hit in the series. It was an RBI double in game 1 today, but he was overmatched a little bit tonight. He had his first hat trick of his big league career. But let me give my answer right away. I am not worried in the slightest. And even if it takes him a little bit to get going, I'm not worried in the slightest. And here's a few reasons as to why. And I thought Ryan Lefevre pointed this out perfectly on the broadcast. And it was that you have a guy who was a college hitter at this point last year, right? Or was just coming off a college season. And these players in the big leagues are fully aware of the fact that their performance in the first 2 months of the year resulted in them calling up a kid who just finished up college last year. Like, that is a shock to the system of, yes, we want him up here and we feel he can help us, but we had to rush him up here sooner than expected because you needed an offensive spark. But yet here they have this offensive spark. You know, Jack Caglione had 1 hit, but clearly everybody else had a little extra fire to them. They were putting together good at-bats. They were aggressive, but it was a smart aggressiveness. Where they were ambushing when they needed to. Salvador Perez had a good series. Vinny Pasquantino did. Jonathan India did. Even Bobby Witt Jr. had a good series, not a phenomenal series. He made 1 hell of a play at short tonight, but unfortunately right after that, Nolan Arenado had a game-tying 2-run home run. But you didn't even get the MVP version of Bobby Witt Jr. But Nick Lofton was good. Kyle Isbell was good. You got production from the bottom of the order. Freddie Fermin went to Big Mac land in the 3rd deck. So you leave with a little bit more confidence in the bats, in the offense, and you go take on the last place team and one of the worst records in the American League. A team that also just split with Detroit, who's atop your division, so you never really know in baseball. But this, to me, is the first time all year they have been able to put together 3 good offensive games. They scored 10, they scored 5, they scored 7. You take that 9 times out of 10. In fact, 10 out of 10 times with this rotation and this bullpen. They should have some juice going into Chicago. And even if Jack Caglione has 1 or 2 hits in the Chicago series, as long as everybody else is hitting, that's what matters. Because you feel he's going to get more comfortable at the plate. He is going to get going at some point, but it sparked everybody else. And that should be the big takeaway here. Nobody, and I mean nobody, should be concerned about the start. You shouldn't be. He is up here much sooner than expected. There are going to be the ups and downs. And I thought they treated him like a threatening hitter in the series. Twice. You had Marmo go to the bullpen to face Jack Caglione with a left-handed arm. Like with 2 outs in the inning, it was, we are going to the bullpen and we are going to have a lefty face Jack Caglione, who is in his 3rd big league game. I also thought it was very interesting that with Liberatore on the mound, who the Royals jumped all over in this game, that when Salvador Perez was up with a runner at 3rd and 1 out, they elected to throw to him with a base open and Jack Caglione, a left-handed hitter, right behind him. That was telling to me that the Cardinals know about the power, of course, but they're treating him like a legitimate threat and somebody that already has earned some respect in the game despite only having 1 big league hit to his name. I found that interesting, but the offense, A-plus series for them, in my opinion, because the bar has been so low for a while, but hopefully they can carry that into their series against the White Sox. The first time they are headed to the South Side this season. Let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, am I concerned about Cole Ragans following his first start since coming off the IL? I'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast. Before we go to our next segment, I want to tell you about wonderful pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, where each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller longer. Get snackin and get crackin with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. And on a day like today, where you got the doubleheader, I'm doing 2 podcasts, you get a little bit hungry. In between the games, you have the start time at 12:45, and then you're in that in-between spot before you have the nightcap at 6:45. A great snack to go to, Wonderful Pistachios, because of that protein. And as it says, keeps you feeling fuller longer. The negative of tonight was that Cole Ragans didn't look as sharp as he did last year. And let's be honest, he has not been sharp this year besides a few starts here and there. And what has been maybe the most glaring problem to me is that he's just not as aggressive in the zone. There were starts very early on in the year. You had the start against Cleveland on opening day, and then you had that start in Milwaukee. And the Milwaukee start is the one I'm going to highlight here. He was so aggressive in the zone that it burned him a few times. You know, Jackson Chourio had the home run, and the Brewers were able to get a couple of runs there. But he was so aggressive in that outing that they were able to sit on, fastball middle, or change up middle. And he was wanting to throw a lot of strikes because in that opening day start against Cleveland, he just wasn't as efficient. He was grinding through a lot of those at-bats, and then he went and returned to Cleveland for the first time in 2025 and dominated in that start, was absolutely filthy in that start. But after that, you did start to see a little bit of a change. He could only go through 5 innings. He'd get a high strikeout total, but he'd throw a lot of pitches. And that usually goes without saying. If you strike out a lot of people, you are definitely throwing a lot of pitches. Even if you only walk like 1 or 2 guys, you are throwing a lot of pitches. And it's great to have the strikeout numbers. You want Cole Ragans to be your ace that punches out 200 to 210 guys every single year. But when he can only work 5 innings, it works against you a little bit. And in those outings where the groin was affecting him, you just did not see that true efficient look that he had last year, where when he's on, man, he is on. And tonight, maybe the most concerning thing was that when he was missing, it really was not that close. He was missing high and away or high and in, and sometimes the slider just wouldn't bite the way that it usually would to get down to the bottom part of the zone against lefties, down in the way, against righties, down and in. The stuff still played well. It was playing up, but when you don't have the command of it, you're going to run into some serious trouble. And he threw nearly 80 pitches in 3 innings. That is alarming because clearly something is not right. I will chalk up tonight to a little bit of rust but also seeing a lot of what we've seen this year from Cole Ragans. And I was asked this on Twitter, so I do feel the need to clarify a little bit. Cole Ragans does not need to be sat down or moved to the bullpen because the numbers aren't there just yet. You don't need to demote him anywhere, and unless he is truly hurt, then you do not put him on the injured list again. If it flares back up and you have that issue, then we can have that conversation again. But if he's healthy and he's just working through some things, he's got to be making his starts. He just has to. This team cannot make a deep run in the postseason if this is the version of Cole Ragans they're going to have for the entire year. We should all be aware of that. Yes, Chris Bubich has been their best arm. Walker has been so impressive. Same with Noah Cameron. Seth Lugo is just starting to work back into things. And that's something we saw in his first start since coming off the IL. He was not sharp against Detroit. He only got through 4 innings and gave up 4 runs. Like, it just was not the typical efficient Seth Lugo start. So if we can give Seth Lugo a little bit of leeway, we can do the same exact thing for Cole Ragans. I understand that Cole Ragans' numbers have not been good, and I want to say now that his ERA might be over 5 after the 5 runs that he gave up tonight. So he was fortunate enough to get a lot of run support, and we're not going to talk too much on how poor the performance was because the offense had 7. But yeah, Cole Ragans' ERA is now 5.18. That's not ace material. But his next start will come next week at home against the Yankees, a team he saw a lot last year that he faced when they were in New York, and then also he faced them in the postseason. Didn't get to face them when they were in Kansas City, but faced them, and that was the only game they won in the ALDS, Game 2 there in New York. You got to get him right, though. And it will be concerning if he goes out there against New York and gets bombed. And that's a lineup that can do a lot of damage to someone like Cole Ragans, who is struggling to find that command. But this is someone that was a big reason you were able to get to the postseason last year. He was that guy every 5th day you felt good about taking the mound. But this year, it's been a bit of a different story. And you were hoping that when he gets right, when he's 100% healthy and he feels 100% good, he can get back to that form. I have no doubt in my mind the talent is still there. That doesn't just drastically change, in my opinion. You don't go from a guy that gets Cy Young votes to being just a pitcher that's going to have a 5.18 ERA and can't work into the 5th inning anymore. I guess we have seen it before. We've seen the regression after having Cy Young type seasons, because you can look at that being the one-off or the anomaly. But Cole Ragans was really good in 2023 and really good in 2024. He also stayed healthy in both of those seasons. In 2025, he's battled this groin injury, and maybe that's forced him to fight his mechanics a little bit. You're hoping not. But I will say for tonight, a little bit of it was rust. A little bit of it is what we've seen for a chunk of this season from him. But no, I am not to the point where you need to think about getting Kyle Wright up in the rotation to replace Cole Ragans. Cole Ragans is not going anywhere unless he's on the injured list. Even if he is struggling, and he continues to struggle, it would take a struggle of catastrophic proportions to bump him from the rotation. Because you still feel that on the off chance you get him on a good night, which happens in baseball, you've got those guys that show up with a 5+ ERA and all of a sudden they just shove. And you have good arms that are not having great seasons, they can just shove. They need Cole Ragans to return to last year's form. That is just a non-negotiable when it comes to evaluating this team and their chances at a postseason berth. You cannot make it back to the postseason if you get this version of Cole Ragans, because this team is built on pitching. And he is somebody that was their opening day starter and one of 2 workhorses last year to go, 200+ innings, 200+ strikeouts. It was a big time from Cole Ragans last year. And we just haven't seen it this year. But I'm not going to give up on him because he's battled this groin injury and he just hasn't been as sharp. He needs a get-right game. He needs a get-right start. And there would be no better time to do so than in Kansas City in front of a big crowd and taking on one of the top teams in the American League in the New York Yankees. Okay, we'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's look ahead to the 3-game series with the Chicago White Sox. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. And you can also check out our new postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo. He brought you the first episode tonight, and that's live. He broadcasts right after the game ends, gives you his thoughts, so you'll always have that instant reaction, but we're also not changing things over here on Locked On Royals. 5 episodes a week, as well as our 60-second YouTube shorts. Up next for the Royals will be the Chicago White Sox, who are 20-43 on the season. They just got their 20th win in walk-off fashion today. It was Tim Elko that walked off the Detroit Tigers, so they gave Kansas City some help going into this series. They were able to take at least 2 games from Detroit. So even though the Royals got walked off in game 1 of the doubleheader, they actually gained ground on the day. Now just 7.5 back of the Tigers. They are 1 game back of Cleveland, and they are 1.5 games back of second place and the Minnesota Twins. And it should be worth noting that while the Royals are going to Chicago, here is where the rest of the AL Central is going to be playing. The Tigers will be at home against the Chicago Cubs, who are 16 games over 500. The Guardians will be at home against the Astros, who are 6 games over 500. And the Minnesota Twins will be at home against the Toronto Blue Jays, who have been hot of late, and they are 4 games under 500. So the Royals are the only team in the Central playing a team that is under 500, because, of course, Chicago playing Kansas City at 33-30. As for game 1, it'll be Seth Lugo making his second start since coming off the injured list. And for the White Sox, it will be Davis Martin, who did make the start back in Kansas City. And he's been pretty good of late, really since that start in Kansas City, where I didn't think he was all that bad either. He was able to go 4 1/3. He was tagged for 4 runs. It wasn't a great start. I thought there were some good things, though, that he did in that game. Maybe I'm just trying to be too nice to the guy because I am biased for him. He was one of those players that I liked going into the season, like the power change that he had. It's almost like a kick change that we've been talking about with Andrew Hoffman. But maybe I should be a little bit more realistic. Not that great of a start. I was maybe envisioning somebody else then. I know that it was Shane Smith that had a really good start. And then Jonathan Cannon had a good start. So it was Davis Martin that did not have the good start in that series when the Royals swept the Chicago White Sox. So the Royals had 7 hits off of him, 4 runs and 4 1/3. But since that outing, 3 straight quality starts for him. He threw 6 2/3 on the road in Cincinnati, such a tough park to pitch in, gave up only 1 run, and he struck out 5 and didn't walk anybody. And he followed the next one up with 7 1/3 innings against Seattle, in which he gave up only 2 runs, struck out 3, and walked just 1. And last time out in Baltimore, he threw 6 innings of 4-run balls. So actually, it was just 2 of 3 quality starts for him. But he did give up 4 runs in that outing, 2 home runs, struck out 3, and walked just 1. So he has not been getting the strikeout total in the month of May. And on the season, he's only got 41 strikeouts and 68 2/3. But he does have that powerful changeup that he likes to go to with 2 strikes. So he'll be the game 1 starter for Chicago. Seth Lugo, of course, will be for Kansas City. Here's some numbers, though, for guys in the lineup and facing Davis Martin. So Freddie Fermin is 0 for 2 in his career. Michael Garcia 0 for 2. Jonathan India is 0 for 2. Kyle Isbell's 0 for 2. Nick Lofton has not faced him. Michael Massey is actually 2 for 2 in his career off of Martin. Vinny Pasquantino's hitting 400. Salvador Perez is hitting 600. John Rave, of course, has not faced him. Drew Waters is 0 for 2, and Bobby Witt Jr. is 2 for 8 in his career against Davis Martin. As for Seth Lugo, Andrew Benintendi is 2 for 7 off of Lugo in his career. Corey Lee is hitting .333 and 6 at-bats off of him. You have Mydroth, who is 0 for 4. Palacios is 1 for 4 against Lugo. Caro is 0 for 3. Luis Robert Jr. is 0 for 7 in his career. Josh Rojas is hitting .333 in 6 at-bats. You also have Slater, I believe, too. Slater was not available, and Austin Slater was not available in that series in Kansas City. Well, he's OPSing north of 1,000 against Lugo in his career. Mike Tauchman is 1 for 4. Michael A. Taylor is hitting just 154 in 13 at-bats. He's got the most experience against Lugo in his big league career, and Miguel Vargas is 0 for 3 against Seth Lugo. As for Game 2, this will be at 3:10 on Saturday. Michael Wacha will get the ball. We know how damn good he is against Chicago, at least since being in a Royals uniform. And it will be Adrian Hauser going for the White Sox in this outing. He has been very efficient over the 3 starts that he's had, and really the only 3 starts that he's thrown this season. So he has been a pleasant surprise for Chicago, likely a trade chip at the deadline. 6 1/3 innings in his last time out, which was just 3 earned runs, gave up 8 hits there. Against the Mets back on May 26th, he had 6 scoreless innings. You talk about impressive against one of the better lineups in all of baseball. And against Seattle, 6 scoreless innings. So 3 quality starts since joining the White Sox. A 32-year-old, by the way, who spent last year with the New York Mets, had a 5.84 ERA. Is this a little bit of fool's gold? Is it just 3 really good starts and he's added something new to his arsenal? I guess we'll see a bit more on Saturday, but the White Sox are getting exactly what they needed out of a guy like Adrian Hauser, who they will most certainly flip at the deadline, with him being 32 years old and right now sporting a 1.47 ERA. As for some of the numbers for these guys, as I said, there is nobody hitting higher than .286 against Michael Wacha on the White Sox roster, and it's Michael A. Taylor, who has 14 at-bats in his career against Wacha. He's hitting .286, but OPSing just .643. You got a lot of bad averages outside of that, though. Andrew Benintendi, 143. Corey Lee's 0 for 6. Luis Roberts, 2 for 10. You also have Miguel Vargas, who is 1 for 6 in his career off of Wacha. As for the Royals, some experience, but not really outside of Jonathan India. Jonathan India, though, hitting just 176 in his career against Adrian Hauser in 17 at-bats. Salvador Perez is hitting .667 with a 2,000 OPS in 6 at-bats, and then Bobby Witt Jr. is hitting .667 in 3 at-bats, so he's 2 for 3 off of Hauser in his career. First pitch will be at 3:10 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. Then the series finale before the Royals will have the off day on Monday and return home for the New York Yankees. It'll be Michael Lorenzen looking to get things right with his 3-6 record, 5.12 ERA. And then it will be Shane Smith throwing in the series finale. He has been probably the number 1 player on the White Sox this year, and certainly going to be the all-star representative for them unless something drastically changes. A Rule 5 pick, and we know all about Shane Smith back in Kansas City because of how good he looked in that one outing on a Wednesday night, I want to say, of that series, because I was out there and I usually cover those games on a Wednesday. But on the year, 2.45 ERA, 60 strikeouts and 62 1/3 innings. He's got a ton of movement, a very repeatable delivery. I liken it to Brady Singer's windup, who the Royals also just saw in the last homestand. But once again, just doing his job the last couple times out. He went 5 1/3 against Detroit back on June 3rd. Didn't give up any runs there, walked just 2 and struck out 6. He only went 3 2/3 against the Mets, but only surrendered 3 earned runs in that game. He walked 5 and struck out 5. And then against Seattle, 3 earned runs in 5 innings. So not working that deep into games the last 3 times out, but he does have a 2.57 ERA in his last 7 starts. Again, other than that outing they had in Kansas City, the Royals don't have a ton of familiarity with Shane Smith. As for Michael Lorenzen, he does have some really good numbers against this White Sox lineup. Andrew Benintendi just OPSing at 347 and 8 at-bats. Luis Robert Jr. has the most experience against Lorenzen. He's hitting 273 and 11 at-bats. But Josh Rojas, Austin Slater, Mike Tauchman, and Michael A. Taylor all hitless against Michael Lorenzen in their careers. So that game will be at 1:10 on Sunday before the Royals will have the off day on Monday and then head back home, or they'll be back home on Monday, but then they'll have that home series and that homestand against the New York Yankees and then the Athletics. Well, that'll do it for our second episode of the night on Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Before we say goodnight, thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we'll be bringing you a very early Mailbag Friday, but until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.